Knowles on the News. Susan Knowles.
So the other day I was having a conversation with a registered Democrat, and out of curiosity I asked him who he wanted as the presidential nominee. He said it was a tough decision between Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. After saying out loud, "Are you crazy?" I composed myself and started to tell him all the reasons why I shouldn't vote for either. He told me he had voted for Barack Obama twice and only realized after the second time voting for him that he had made a big mistake. Now, judging by the candidates currently in the lead for the Democratic presidential nomination and the willingness for Democrats to once again vote for a candidate with similar ideologies to those of Obama, I've really come to the conclusion that the Democratic Party may have officially become America's newest progressive socialist party. You need to only look at the people who influence the lives of the current sitting president and the two Democratic presidential candidates to understand that socialism is firmly entrenched within the Democratic Party. I'm reminded of the saying, "You can judge a person by the company they keep." I think you can also learn a significant amount of information about a person based upon the people they admire. For instance, Obama stated in his book, Dreams from My Father, that Frank Marshall Davis was a very influential friend of the family who was a childhood mentor to Obama. He was a journalist and activist who basically associated with the Communist Party, but Frank Davis never admitted to being a communist. However, the FBI and others identified him as a member. Perhaps knowing all this, it's no surprise in hindsight that Obama would focus much of his presidency on the racial ideology that he grew up hearing from individuals like Davis, and that he would level the type of criticisms towards America he apparently also learned from his association with Davis. And there is Clinton, who was so influenced by Saul Alinsky that she wrote a thesis sympathetic to the communist community organizer. Many believe the thesis exposed her as a radical socialist. In addition, Clinton has also been quoted as saying, "I admire Margaret Sanger enormously. Her courage, her tenacity, her vision. I'm really in awe of her. There are a lot of lessons that we can learn from her life." Now, as you may recall, Sanger called for an extermination of the Negro population, and she was pro-eugenics, which stands in stark contrast to Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who Clinton claims she also admired and who was influential in her decision to switch from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. Clinton's seemingly progressive socialist ideas are confusing to say the least, and it appears that her progressive decision-making, should she be elected president, would be just as perplexing. As you may recall, she initially opposed same-sex marriage for over a decade and then fully supported it in 2013. She also reversed her opposition to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and she at one time supported the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in the Citizens United case, and then later decided that she wanted to overturn it. No one can be certain what she will support or oppose in the future, but you can be sure that her policies will exude progressive socialism. Now, what can the public expect of Sanders if he were to be elected president? Again, it's important to look at who was instrumental in shaping his life as an individual. Sanders has indicated that he was influenced by a man named Eugene V. Debs. Debs, among other things, ran 5 times as the candidate of the Socialist Party of America for President of the United States. He became one of the best-known socialists living within the United States. He was also a convicted felon who was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The Supreme Court in Debs versus United States concluded that he had the intention and effect of obstructing the draft and military recruitment. He began serving his sentence in April 1919. Debs later ran for president while in prison, and this won't surprise you. He received over 919,000 write-in votes. In December 1921, he was released from prison by President Harding, who commuted Debs' sentence to time served. Now, Sanders wrote, directed, and gave his voice for Debs' dialogue in Eugene Debs' Trade Unionist Socialist Revolutionary, while Sanders was working for a company that produced these political films. Deb's legacy was a motivator to the American left in their political opposition to corporations in World War I. He is admired by American socialists, communists, and anarchists who honor his compassion for the labor movement and motivation to the average man who wants to build socialism without large state involvement. Sanders seems to have continued some of the progressive socialist policies by touting himself as the defender of the middle class, by filing as a conscientious objector to the Vietnam War, a move that Debs would certainly have been proud of, and by openly admitting to being a socialist. Now, I believe that Democrats have forgotten what it means to be a member of the Democratic class because so much of their party has been transformed by this current administration for more than 6 years. I believe that they're either convinced that their party has always been this way, or perhaps they've just given up and reached a point of acceptance. So when Sanders now says that America is already a socialist country, perhaps the new Progressive Socialist Party, which apparently has replaced the old Democratic Party, is more inclined to cheer him on. It's very sad to know that the Democratic Party has gone the way of progressive socialism. And I think that the Republican Party, while we aren't that way as Americans, I do believe that many of our GOP politicians are well on their way down that path. I do hope that the Democratic Party will try to turn things around and perhaps even decide that they may need to vote outside of party lines in order to get the Democratic Party back to some semblance of what it used to be. And it would appear that the days of Reagan Democrats are bygone days that are gone forever. Until next time, this is Susan Knowles for Knowles on the News.